The early 90s were chock full of sports movies geared toward kids. The Sandlot, The Mighty Ducks, The Big Green, Rookie of the Year, Little Big League, and of course, Little Giants, starring Al Bundy himself, Ed O'Neill, and the sorely missed Rick Moranis. Starting out in 1964, which is 30 years behind, the opening scene displays the friction between the two brothers. Just remember, this movie's rated PG, so there's no incest, and how these brothers might as well be night and day. Kevin, played by Ed O'Neill, is pretty much destined to be a dickhead, but a revered, respected dickhead. Danny's character, played by Rick Moranis, is destined to become second fiddle to his brother because he's a pussy and he doesn't want to fight back until he's 40 years old. Anyhow, 30 years later, here in present-day 1994, Kevin's an old has-been who probably can't get it up despite having a smoking hot wife, so he's coaching the Pop Warner Football League for younger kids so he can look big to somebody. The tryouts for the team are quite predictable, as half the participants are far from athletic quote-unquote misfits, and the other half are future steroid abusers that'll be hawking Viagra and protein shakes in 20 years that they're used and dropped like a gas station condom. One of the participants who try out is none other than Kevin's niece, Icebox, which means somebody actually had sex with Danny at some point in his life. Icebox might as well have been the mid-90s answer to Peppermint Patty. She's the type of alpha female that could kick your ass at sports, beat her future's husband's ass for being a Minuteman, and then leave him in exchange for a porn parody of this movie because of tough times. Icebox and her far from athletic friends get their hopes crushed when Kevin and his partner in crime since childhood, Coach Butts, ignore them for these little squirmy douchebags with bowl haircuts and future substance abuse problems. I mean, despite being the best person out there, Icebox did not get picked for an obvious reason. Kevin is a misogynist. I mean, though it's a kid-friendly film, rather, it never explained that Kevin's sexual technique never matched up with his oversized ego that he had sported since childhood. His wife obviously stuck around for the children, and not out of pity due to Kevin's inability to last longer than a chewing gum commercial, because I'm sure Kevin popped quicker than any piece of bubble gum. I mean, hence the hostility to a woman's equal right to play contact sports. Anyhow, everyone's sulking about not being chosen to play in Kevin's preteen steroid squad as they hang out in their clubhouse behind the gas station where Danny works. Of course, three of the biggest dickheads from the Cowboys, which is Kevin's team, shows up on their bikes and try to taunt the kid who couldn't catch shit if his hands were toilets, known as Hanan, this freckly, huskier kid who's bound to shit his pants from farting too much, Rudy, and the well-meaning but wimpy Tad. However, as the three splooges and the passed-over trio began to get into it, the sound of Icebox's go-kart strikes the fear into the three dickheads who place on their football helmets and make a run for it on their bikes. You know, chase ensues, you know that shit. You know the drill. Icebox spouts off to Sean Murphy, also known as Fuckface Number 3, that her dad Danny will finally untuck his balls from between his legs and start a football team that'll take on his impotent brother's team. Well, word travels fast in the middle of nowhere, and the mayor, who looks like a bearded, balding Humpty Dumpty, approaches Kevin with bugged-out eyes, explaining to him that there's a second team wanting to be the team of this jerkwater town. I mean, in that second, Kevin's ego gets bruised as the entrance of his brother into the diner becomes the entrance of his enemy. Rick Moranis is out of the loop here. He thinks he's going to enjoy his daily breakfast of cornflakes and politely rejects sexual advances from the much older waitress, but something much bigger is afoot here. Icebox runs in all awkwardly from having her penis tucked between her legs and informs her dad that he's the coach of their team. The surprise on Danny's face was either from the shock of his daughter looking up to him as a dominant male role model, or from the mere thought of standing up to his brother making him shit himself. The two get into it, and Rick Moranis vows that Al Bundy will be his bitch. The remainder of the movie is quite textbook, really. Assemble a team that's even more hopeless is the aim. Because when you're walking down a railroad track, you're going to randomly stumble upon a portly Asian kid with a bowl haircut who has an arsenal of kickballs so he can practice kicking his stepdad in the nuts for eating the last of his cereal. This kid's name is Marcus. Because grown men go full pedophile in front of a grocery store where an obviously disinterested kid wearing a stupid blue cowboy hat is playing on a coin-operated horse but is forced into playing football. Timmy, I want to score more. Because a kid that's contemplating running from home because his dad's always out on business, which is doublespeak for getting some out-of-state ass, while his mother watches Lifetime movies and neglects her husband's advances, And so Johnny decides football is a good alternative to joining the circus. Now, we take this team of hopeless people, we throw a romantic subplot with Icebox and Devon Sawa, where Icebox questions whether or not she should graft on a penis so she can be like one of the million girls who gushed over Devon Sawa in the 90s, or continue her dream of becoming the next China, penis included. So, Sawa's the top fucking banana of the team. I mean, besides Icebox, he's the hottest shit since the aftermath of eating Taco Bell. He shits on the remainder of the team. Hell, Tad still has training wheels on his bike and he's fucking 10 years old. Fast forward a little bit, okay? Danny and Kevin get a tip from the two old perverts at the diner that a new kid's in town that's 10 years old, has abs that can crush beer cans, and speaks about himself in the third person as if he was a test tube baby of Bob Dole. Danny goes there and hears the boy's buzz-cut, fucking polo shirt wearing dickwad of a father describe his son's life cycle as if he was a butterfly. When someone's dad proudly admits to massaging their son's hamstrings with evaporated milk, you may have quite possibly met someone who's not gone door to door yet about their registration. Wink, wink. The practice goes awry. This kid, Spike, will not play with girls, but he, like Mario, has question marks above his head in regard to Icebox's gender, but assumes it's female. No one gets along with him. I mean, I imagine after chowing down on Cheetos and pork and beans that Rudy would happily glad wrap Spike's face and shit all over it. But needless to say, Spike's disturbed father finds out Rick Moranis wasn't Ed O'Neill, cracks up about it, I mean, no visible sign of a wet spot on the fly of his shorts, and vows to kick their asses in the field that coming Saturday at the game. Well, as Saturday comes, game day finally gets here. Icebox has the hots for Sawa, realizes that wearing plaid and playing with Tonka trucks in the dirt won't win his affection, so she becomes a cheerleader. Well, I mean, the team's obviously fucked at this point. I mean, with the exception of Devon Sawa, we have a dude that smells like shit, one who has a cheating father whose dick is more wet than Seattle, and a scrawny sap with a dominant mother priming him up to be the future Norman Bates who blows snot bubbles. Jake Berman, or the immortal Todd Bosley, playing himself way back in '94. So, Kevin's team starts fucking the shit out of Danny's team. I mean, I believe it was pretty bleak already when the kid they found with a bowl haircut kicks his teammates square in the nuts on kickoff. By halftime, it was 21-0. Everyone's talking about quitting the game and going on the injured list. Realizing that he'd been from that species of pussy, Danny informs him that he's been there and motivates him to go out there and embarrass themselves because he beat his brother one time when racing bikes down a hill. The kid's hopes are restored from that stupid story, as fond memories of throwing cow shit at the fair and doing backflips in the swimming pools energize him for that crucial second half. Well, the game turns around. Icebox decides she can play football and win the heart of Devon Sawa. Well, that and this whole thing was her damn idea in the first place, so she has to do this. She's on the spot. The Little Giants employ a variety of methods to kick their own brand of ass. Such delightful little antics such as cramming Alka-Seltzer down their mouths and foaming from their mouths like a mad dog or a very cut-rate porn starlet. Or how about the heartwarming touchdown by Johnny when his unfaithful father walks to the field after tag-teaming a redhead with Rudy's dad and sporting the most foolish grin on his face. It was slimy, but damn did it work. Giants scored! However, the most epic way to win the game was back-to-back. Rudy decides to psych out the Cowboys and finally shits his pants. The aroma was so overwhelming that the Cowboys ran backwards to escape. As the ball snaps, Jake Berman went from that scrawny, frail motherfucker to being this quick, effective runner who'd end up getting so much ass in college for shining like a star on this fateful day as his touchdown sinks the win for the Little Giants. This win makes Kevin question whether or not his erectile dysfunction is enough to file for divorce. Danny finally one-ups his brother and gets a shot at the title for fucking Devon Sawa's mother, the love of his life, Patty Floyd. And Icebox and Devon Sawa end up doing some shit together. The end. My thoughts are it aged well. For a movie that came out in 1994, I figured it'd be quite stale, like other movies he loved and adored as children. However, it still had that mid-90s little engine that could charm about it. Not quite as epic as The Sandlot, but it's definitely 3 stars out of 4 to me. But the one thing I like is there's connections between this movie and others. Michael Zwiener that played Zoltek, he actually went on to be in Big Bully, playing the younger version of Tom Arnold's character, a movie which Rick Moranis was also in. But what's up with some of these characters, though? I mean, the actors, rather. I know Michael Zwiener, at last they heard, was living in Illinois, working at FedEx. Otherwise, his film credits went as far as, I think, 2000. Something called Boys to Men. Let's see. We got Danny Pritchett. He was in this movie. He got a small part in Jingle All the Way and the very short-lived TV show Champs. Pritchett now does music and lives in Los Angeles. John Paul Stewart that plays, what's his name? Johnny Venero, the one with the unfaithful dad who gets all kinds of out-of-state ass. Also in the music, the punk glam band, the Soda Pop Kids. Shauna Waldron, the Icebox, no brainer. She went from this to going to do the fourth Poison Ivy movie, which is basically her starring in softcore porn. But we all got to make an honest buck, don't we? All kidding aside, though, some good child actors in this movie. Troy Simmons played Hanan. Actually released, I guess, worked on a rap song and had his name as MC Hot Hands or some shit. I guess he's living up in North Carolina now. You know, some of them went on to do other things. I mean, working normal 9 to 5 jobs. A couple got into music. Some stayed in the acting, such as Sawa Waldron, Ed O'Neill, and of course the sorely missed Rick Moranis, who after 1997 really didn't do shit unless you count his voiceover work for Brother Bear. But anyhow, all in all, I mean, this is a great kids movie. It's one my own child likes nowadays. Well, anyhow, fuckers, the end.